The Don Jail in Toronto was one of Canada's most dangerous facilities. The inmates who resided within its walls were exposed to mass overcrowding, murders, and riots. The jail also had a long history of escape attempts and guard brutality. Before it was closed in 2013, both guards and inmates complained of its horrible conditions. This is the story of Toronto's Don Jail. Before we get into this, I just wanted to take a quick second to shout out everyone who supported the channel this far. I always enjoy to hear your guys' comments and really appreciate anyone who takes the time to watch these stories. With all that being said, let's get right into today's story. The jail was constructed between 1858 and 1864, which means the building is older than Canada itself. It was designed to rehabilitate inmates and house them before they were convicted. The Don Jail was initially dubbed the Palace for Prisoners due to its progressive living conditions, but this reputation was short-lived and would become known for a more sinister reason. Capital punishment wasn't abolished in Canada until 1977. Between 1901 and 1960, the Don Jail seen 26 hangings. These executions were carried out in an old dirty bathroom which was converted into a death chamber. On December 11, 1962, the Don Jail seen the double execution of Arthur Lucas and Ronald Turpin, the last hangings in Canadian history. The jail also became known for its frequent escape attempts. This reputation became solidified in 1951 when inmates Edwin Boyd and Lenny Jackson formed the Boyd Gang within the Don Jail. The two men were arrested for separate bank robberies, but quickly became friends while serving time together. The gang stored a hacksaw in Lenny Jackson's artificial leg, which they used to cut the bars of their cells. They then scaled the jail walls using bed sheets and made for their escape. While on the run, the Boyd Gang were linked to 6 bank robberies in Toronto alone, one being the Royal Bank of Canada in Leaside, where they made off with more than $46,000. This was about $562,000 today and was the largest bank robbery in Canadian history at the time. The Boyd Gang were arrested again in 1952 and were sent back to the Don Jail, but this proved to be a grave mistake as they quickly escaped again, this time by even more creative means. Member William Jackson dehydrated himself for days so his skin could form an imprint of a key. After stealing a guard's key and returning it, the gang used an imprint on his palm to craft one of their own. They used this to unlock their cells and fled through a second-story window. This sparked the largest manhunt in Ontario's history. On March 6, 1952, Lenny Jackson and Steve Shushan took the life of Detective Edmund Tong. Shortly after this, the Boyd Gang were discovered to be hiding out in a barn and were arrested. Lenny Jackson and Steve Shushan were quickly found guilty for the murder of Detective Tong. They were both executed at Don Jail during a double hanging in December 1952. Edwin Boyd and William Jackson were not tried for the homicide, but they did serve time for their roles in the spree of bank robberies. Both were released from Kingston Penitentiary in the 1960s. In 1958, construction of the Don Jail's East Wing had been completed. It was built to house an additional 225 inmates, but in 1977, the jail's original building had become completely outdated and was no longer used to house inmates. The East Wing became the building's primary facility and was quickly overcrowded. By 1980, the Don Jail held anywhere between 500 and 600 inmates on any given night, double the capacity it was initially intended for. On an average day, you would see 3 men cramped together in a 2-man cell, with one having to sleep on a floor mattress. This, unsurprisingly, created a hostile environment between inmates. The 1980s also seen a surge in street gangs within Toronto. Blocks throughout the city had formed bitter tensions and would take their feuds behind bars. The Don Jail was ill-equipped to combat Toronto's rising gang culture and force rival gangs into close proximity, which led to numerous beatings and retaliations. Even up until its closing in 2013, the building had virtually no cameras on its interior. This created a recipe for disaster for some people who had gathered enemies on the outside. In January 2010, Kevin Philippe, an inmate at Toronto's Don Jail, lost his life during a brutal beating committed by other inmates. 4 men circled Philippe, attacking him until he was unconscious. Guards on shift disregarded other inmates calling for help, taking it for a joke. When they discovered what had happened, Another inmate had dragged Philippe's body out into the hallway, crying out, "How could you let this happen?" This situation painted Don jail guards as incompetent, and they face other accusations of beatings and mistreatment, but these claims could never be backed due to the jail having no cameras or physical evidence. What can be proved is the unsafe conditions inmates were forced into. First-time offenders were piled with killers and career criminals, forcing the weaker inmates to become victims. In November 2009, Jeffrey Monroe, an inmate who was previously diagnosed with schizophrenia, also lost his life in a savage beating after he was accused of stealing another inmate's chips. Guards on duty complained of understaffing to be the reason for this incident going unnoticed, which was an issue that had been reported on for nearly a decade prior to this incident. The facility had become increasingly more outdated over the years, and as turf wars raged across Toronto, the Don jail couldn't contain the violence within its walls. Tensions increased while gang members were locked up together, adding another element to the city's gang culture. In some extreme cases, people were targeted as soon as they were released. This was a brazen and easy way for gangs to get the drop on their enemies. In 2007, a 21-year-old was shot dead outside the Don jail gates while he was being released. Incidents like these have happened outside other facilities in Toronto as well. The Don jail was officially closed in 2013, but like many other correctional facilities, we'll never really know the horrors that went on within its walls. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you guys have any stories to share on the Don jail, definitely leave them down in the comments below. I know I'd enjoy to hear them, and I'm sure others would as well. With all that being said, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the comments.